What is up, Brad fans? Welcome to another politics episode, an episode for those of you who are into the science of politics, the political sciences, if you will, especially focusing on Canada and the US, as we normally do. I am joined, of course, by the three members of the regular ordinary voter, taxpayer, ordinary guy panel. And we were still in the holiday spirit. One of us maybe a little bit more so than the others, as he made some off-color jokes. So, I am too lazy to edit all those out, so be warned. Be warned. We're also too lazy, as this was the holidays. We recorded this on the first Sunday of January, to really have a dedicated theme or structure. But being that it is a New Year's show, we did a hodgepodge of looking back at the year, winners and losers, Rudy Giuliani's best moments, all of these things. Our look back at lessons that could be learned from last year brought us into a heavy conversation of Alberta, the Alberta government, some of their recent troubles with travel, but also just in general the approach of some populist sort of governments that got into power and then tended to maybe not handle the pandemic as well, or maybe this highlights some things that people are maybe saying, hey, maybe this isn't what we want. But that's just my opinion. We also touched on sort of the opposite side of the spectrum and, the federal liberals in Canada and, are they going to get the support that they expect from their spend-heavy approach? And will there be a federal election upcoming in Canada? Spoiler alert, we all said yes. Anywho, like I said, then we did some winners and losers and Rudy Giuliani's best moments. So all in all, it was fun. Enjoyed it. Always love talking to these guys about politics. Now, new announcements for the show this year. We have an email, tobradforyou@gmail.com. If you send us an email, I'll read it on the show. We also have a way that you can send us voice messages, which I will also play on the show. So for that, you can go to our website, tobradforyou.wordpress.com. There is a link on the homepage to our SpeakPipe messenger service. So you can also go directly to speakpipe.com/tobradforyou, and you can leave us a message. As always, Twitter and Instagram are also available to you at tobradforyou. And please rate, subscribe, comment wherever you're getting your podcasts. All of that really helps. We're hoping to interact with y'all more in this new year. So yeah, reach out any way you want. Speakpipe.com/tobradforyou. Leave us a message. tobradforyou@gmail.com. Write us a message. At tobradforyou on Twitter and Instagram. Leave us a message, like our posts, comment, all that. And like I said, you can always rate, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Help us out. With that, here you go. An interesting chat on politics with my good friends from back home in Alberta. Well, gentlemen, Happy New Year. We're joined again by all three members of the regular, ordinary dudes, the very normal voters, the citizens that the politicians want to keep happy. Am I right? Coleman up in Edmonton in the north. Coleman, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm a frequent taxpayer and a voter, and I'm happy to be on the show.
As always. And Scott and Steve in the south in Calgary. Gentlemen, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having us on. And yeah, I'm going to pay my taxes pretty soon. They're, corporate. You pay it when you can.
January 1, we just rolled into January, so you better start getting your affairs in order now.
Now's the time.
Steve, what's going on with you?
Hold on, is it a new year?
Are you still in the holiday haze?
I don't know how these days just pass me by. It's a new year, 2021. My God, that's a good feeling. And for sure, they're going to extend the tax deadline. Don't you think, Scott? Are you banking on that?
Not for my little corporation. No, I got a few calls from the CRA saying like, "Hey, when are you going to pay that?" And everyone tells me like, no, it's a big scam, but they're not asking to get paid in Bitcoins or iTunes gift cards, and they know to the penny how much I owe them. So I think it's actually them. But pretty soon, I'll fire them off a check.
Oh, speaking of taxes, if anyone in any sort of upcoming federal election, if we have one this year, wants to campaign on a CERB tax forgiveness platform, they will 100% have my vote.
Could be a number of it could be a number of lucrative platforms to run on in that sense. I know a number of people that might be in on that. But hey, let's say this is a brand new year for this. We're going to continue doing these Two Bread for politics shows. Let's hope that we're all employed for the whole run this year, eh? So far,
Yeah.
so good. Starting off on a good front.
Taking it day by day.
I am vaguely unemployed, but
Well, you just ruined it. I thought we had a good streak going. It was like one day.
yeah, sorry, no. Pretty soon, someone will call. I got a text today, someone looking for some work, so it'll come.
All right.
I know Scott's probably sitting at home eating cheesies, collecting government money. Just makes me sick.
Yeah,
pretty much.
The worst kind of Albertan. We'll leave it very vague as to what Scott does for work too. So, who knows?
Yeah, don't plug your business on a podcast or anything.
No run for Scott.
Yeah, someone called me looking for air quotes work.
Yeah, NorthstarCalgary.ca. Check it out, people. Find us.
I'm gonna bleep
kitchens in town.
I'm gonna bleep that in post.
These aren't free.
All right.
Custom furniture coverings.
All right.
I need a plastic cover for my couch. Are you the guy to talk to, Scott? I don't want to say why I need that cover, but I need it.
Supply and install. Free testing on site.
Free testing. Ooh, lovely.
I'll come into your house and jizz on your couch.
This is. I feel like we're all
just gonna get cut here. I think.
No. This stays in.
I walk if that jizz on a couch joke is cut.
Excuse me. Well, as you can see, we're all still in the holiday haze. That moment, between Christmas and New Year's, where you don't really know what day it is. Now we've actually gone into the new year. We're a couple days in, so let's sharpen it up here, fellas, and we'll do kind of a bit of a hodgepodge of all the tropes of the New Year's show. The look back, the winners and losers, the best moments, that kind of thing. And I'll start it off with my kind of thoughts that I'll put to you guys about what I thought the lesson learned from 2020 could be, because obviously it was a weird year. And to me, the lesson should have been, we can argue whether it will sink in, and I guess we won't know till we have a bit of time behind us, a little bit of space between us and the pandemic. My lesson learned for 2020 should have been that maybe we want to kind of invest in some nice, robust safety systems. Some of the things that I think government is meant to do. Healthcare, keeping their citizens from going, into the depths of poverty, keeping us buffered from these disasters that, hey, turns out they turn up. Turns out they're real. It can happen to everybody on the planet. So that's kind of my look. And I'm thinking about, some of the governments that seem to kind of drop the ball. And I feel like there is a common thread of places that kind of ran on the populist, anti-elite, anti-government, yet they're still part of government platforms. And these platforms that appealed to nothing but rhetoric and sort of talking points, but kind of lacked substance in what they were doing. Obviously, Trump is the big one. I look at Boris Johnson in the UK, but I will say even closer to home, in Alberta, the government that they have now in Alberta ran on this stereotype of what Albertans are: truck driving, conservative folks. But I think that the platform that has been unveiled over the last couple of years of, a pretty conservative project, a pretty ideologically conservative project that takes money from public institutions, tries to privatize it, and does very little to take revenue on the tax side. I'm curious as to how you guys feel it's turned out, and I guess looking forward, can they continue with this project in the face of the year that was 2020? Anyone want to jump in?
You're talking about, well, specifically the Alberta UCP party. Can they continue along? Or you looking for the lesson, or do you want to talk about the party itself and
Good call,
their
Steve.
outlook?
I guess I left it very vague there, but let's start then with the lesson. Do you agree with my thought that the lesson should be that you know a little more focus, a little more emphasis on collective action in terms of the things that we pay for, the things that we should be investing in, is the lesson learned?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I just think it's about being proactive, right? I think it being able to plan. I feel like that transcends a little bit of political kind of ideology, and yeah, I mean, I don't think that the UCP um, is alone in the fact that they were caught off guard by 2020.
100%, 100%.
But there were governments around the world that just showed that they had no plan, no desire to plan. I think the United States is the biggest example of a government that actually threw a plan in the garbage, a government that actually had a plan, and a government who, honestly, we all kind of expect is going to uh, kind of take a global role of leadership
Be the leader, yeah.
up until the last 4 years, I guess. And they insulated themselves. They didn't take that leadership role. They didn't kind of enact any of the good work they'd done in previous administrations, which probably could have. I mean, realistically, who knows what would have happened? But it probably could have stopped this pandemic in its tracks had they taken a similar outlook on the pandemic as what they learned from, say, Ebola and all these other kind of near pandemics, I guess you could say. So yeah, and then we're talking about the UCP. No, I don't think that they are. I don't think that they're in a good position moving forward. I mean, they've got a couple years left, I suppose, and who knows how long the memory will be. But not only did they kind of approach the pandemic lately, especially in a haphazard way, which other governments did as well. I'm not going to say they're on an island on this, but to me, it goes well beyond their ideological motivations, which I think they ran on, and that was their platform, and they got voted in on that platform in terms of cutting taxes, and through austerity or through cuts, limiting spending on public spending. I mean, that's basically what they got voted in for. And had they simply done that and just kind of done it in a relatively boring way, it would have been, I think people would have been more or less happy with the job they've done. But they've just been in an inconsistent leadership void in terms of in every respect, a downright embarrassment to the province of Alberta, which, like you said, Brad, we're not. I mean, there's segments of every province who have this kind of redneck streak or whatever you want to call it, but I think that Alberta will show that that's not representative of a majority in this province. And yes, maybe we lean conservatively, but not when met with incompetence on the other side. So that's what I think.
Yeah. I guess I guess I was a little vague on my opening statements, and you actually tied it together better than I thought I did. But my point was with the UCP in particular was that there is, like, they did run on this stereotype of Alberta, and I think that they are finding that most Albertans aren't actually like that. There's a lot of polling that has been done on this question of, is Alberta really as conservative as the image it's portrayed, and it's not, especially on social issues. It's not. So I'm wondering, I was trying to tie the 2 points together because I think that the ideology that they're running on is a very conservative one, and it resembles some places in America. And my worry is that it guts the things that you need in order to actually deal with large social problems, pandemics, climate change, all of this thing. So I'm wondering if there's going to be a realization, especially among Albertans that voted for them, that like, hey, this isn't actually what we wanted. This isn't who we are. We didn't really want park delisted. We didn't want coal mining opened up again in places. We didn't want fights with doctors and all of the other things that they started all of these fires and were unable to put out any of them, and then got hit with a disaster. So of course their handling of the pandemic alone, they are not alone on that, but they kind of created this firestorm with the approach that they've been taking, and going in this approach of, we're doing this bar nothing, can't tell us what, we're not going to change course at all. So I'm wondering if that makes people that voted for them change course, and maybe they have to tone it back. Coleman?
I think, talking about the UCP specifically, I don't know what we'll call it the second wave response to COVID. I don't know exactly who they're playing to with this. Because you look at what they did is they delayed putting restrictions in to keep the economy open, but then they eventually locked down anyway, and they closed down these businesses. So now you have a situation where people on the left, like NDP voters, don't like them because they didn't do enough. PC voters, like the traditional, more of a center-right voters, probably don't like them as well because they didn't do enough. But then you have the Wildrose far-right voter that they were kind of playing to in the election leading up. They think they've done way too much, so they don't like them. Like, I don't know who they're actually playing to. Like, they're lucky that the federal government has been here to pick up a lot of the slack as far as COVID response goes, with like wage subsidies and things like that, because they haven't done anything there.
And we find out that they left a lot of money on the table.
Yeah, just
a lot of federal money on the table.
Just stick it to the Liberals for reasons unknown. And then go out and say that Alberta's not getting its fair share. It's like, well, we were offered a lot.
Now, in their defense, I think a lot of that money would have gone to low-income workers. So they really need to stick it to the poor also, not just the feds.
That's true. That's very true.
Who would have paid taxes on it, right? Like, it's not just that it was a 400% ROI just to start with, but then you're creating money that you pay people, and they pay income taxes on it in your province at a rate of 10%. So it's insane that money. They would have been able to double dip on that money. It's like being paid for two jobs while doing one. Like, it's crazy that they didn't want to do that. I mean, I think strictly the answer, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think 100% in my mind, the answer they did it is for to make their balance sheet look better. And it could have been also to stick it to Trudeau, but it's either reason is a terrible reason to do that.
I think I agree that they're probably doing it to make their balance sheet look better, but it's going to be a disaster anyway. We've seen a lot of governments kind of ignore the deficits that's coming because it's going to be huge. So say they didn't take that money. We already gave these corporate tax breaks out to people that are already going to make us run a huge deficit. We've talked about that earlier, how they gave huge tax cuts and they were leaving us in the same hole that the NDP were leaving us in that they hated before. So I just don't know who they're playing to at all here. It doesn't make any sense. They're kind of, because you see right-wing governments in the States, especially at the state level, that are like pushing individual freedoms and keeping the economy open. They're going all in on that strategy. It's like, but in like Canada, they're trying to walk this fine line that's just pissing everyone off on both sides. It's boggling to me. It just doesn't make any sense at all.
Certainly the optics of saying we don't want to have $100 million extra expenditure after we just invested $1.5 billion in a pipeline that is almost certainly not going to get built with the incoming administration. And certainly, Kenny at one point called some American law like a moron or, something like that. And I was like, this is not exactly the charm offensive that's going to get your pipeline built. So maybe insulting the intelligence of the people whose support you need to not have completely blown $1,500 million might not be the way to go about it. But like Brad, you asked, can they continue in this way? And I mean, should they continue in this way? No, but can they and will they? It seems almost certainly that they will, in that, I think they kind of came in and launched sort of a big public relations war with the doctors and the nurses, which probably wasn't a great strategy politically to begin with. But then certainly I would have thought when the pandemic hit, they would have been like, okay, we're just going to lay off the fight with the doctors. We're going to at least kind of just tone down the rhetoric. And they didn't really do any of that. And I thought politically, like, I don't understand. Jason Kenney was supposed to come in as this very politically savvy figure. And I think at least just toning down your rhetorical attacks on doctors during the pandemic, when like doctors' approval ratings are pretty high at the moment, I think was crazy. And certainly with their refusal to put the restrictions in place, it doesn't jive with their ideology, so they don't want to do it. Even when they finally did it, Kenny would only talk about the effects on businesses and made virtually no mention of like the effect of COVID on people's health or not seeing their grandparents or things like that. But even when the writing was on the wall that every day the case count goes up, goes up, goes up, we all know the restrictions are coming, they still refused to do it until it seemed that there was just absolutely no option left, despite the fact that everyone who knows anything about this stuff would say every week matters, every day matters. You put these restrictions in place earlier, it's a lot easier to get your case numbers down when you're starting from a much lower point. But I think it's ideology above all, for the most part, with this government. And I think in addition, for the $100 million, not only did they not want it on their balance sheet, but they didn't want to have to say, thanks, Justin, thanks, Trudeau, for bailing out our frontline workers. So no, we'll let them starve instead.
I'm sorry, maybe I got the numbers wrong. Was it not $1 billion to a 4x $1 billion?
What I'd seen is they left $300 million on the table, so they would have had to put in $100 million to get $300 million, which they opted not to do because that would have gone to poor people, and
Yeah.
they're poor for a reason. And it's because they're bad people.
There you go. There you go.
Brad, you're
According
talking
to Scott.
Brad, you're talking about like the lesson we learned from this. It's like, if you want to, because this is our first pandemic in a while, we've kind of gotten part of the way through it. It's still terrible, but if we've learned anything, if you want to keep these economies going when a lot of people aren't working, the only real viable option is to pump money into the lower class. That's the only way to keep it going. If you give money to the top hat, they're just going to save it. So we're talking about if we need to have like strong social nets and stuff like that. It's like, absolutely. Because these governments want to talk about free market, but they're not willing to go far enough to be like, we're going to let these people starve on the street. So unless you're willing to do that, then yeah, we need to have strong safety nets in place. Like, it's the only possible solution to these problems.
Yeah, and I guess that's my thought process was, like some of these ideologies just seem very hollow in terms of what they actually offer people. And I mean, we could discuss, running super ideologically on the left and stuff as well. And that, I think that would be equally terrible. But we don't, we haven't seen that, and I don't think that exists really on the political. I can't think of a country that's gone super left. Well, I mean, China, we could
That's
also not, right?
That's a different kind
It's
of
a
left,
different,
though.
totally different thing. I'm thinking of like, like the Trudeau liberals. It's not really, hard left. And yes, they kind of play to the camera with some of the social issues, and try to be really progressive and stuff there. And it's kind of nauseating at times because I don't think they mean it either. It's political theater. But it doesn't seem to have the consequences that running on this really strong ideology of, say, the UCP or the Republicans in the States, or the Conservatives in the UK seems to have for a lot of people. And I wonder if there is, because this problem with the pandemic is, yes, we're getting through it and stuff with vaccines and whatnot. And let's be fair, like I don't think anyone would have, any government, say it was Rachel Notley or it was Harper in the, in the federal position, no one's going to be saved by this. There was always going to be calamity. There was always going to be trouble. We could argue lockdown, don't lock down. Like it was going to be bad. There was going to be something. So it's a matter of like, what's going to do the best for the most good for most people. And I'm just seeing in my mind that these guys that came in on the populist sort of anti-elite scapegoating sort of narratives, and then had policies that were really kind of about, yeah, like you said, cutting taxes for corporations and high wage high you know income earners, and nothing for the safety net, nothing for the majority of people. It seems to have failed miserably.
Can I quickly touch on something that Coleman said? And I agree with you, Brad, as well. But Coleman, you're talking about the target audience for the UCP and in how they've both handled the pandemic and perhaps kind of just gone about their business in general. But the thing is with their target audience, I think they're trying to do this. And Brad, you talked about this lots last podcast. This cloud up every issue, rely on your base, rely on just a bunch of outrage and energy to come to your side, use the rhetoric, and just let the fire kind of stoke, and it'll come out on your side of things. I mean, obviously it didn't work for Trump because he was defeated in a semi-resoundingly kind of fashion. But
Allegedly.
allegedly, yeah. Gotta keep myself out of the crosshairs of Giuliani here.
Yeah.
I don't want him coming over here and farting in my general direction.
You got to get a cover for your couch if Rudy comes over.
No kidding. Yeah.
I know a guy.
Yeah. North Star couch covers. So the point I'm trying to make is I don't think it works with the UCP either. I think they need to have a pretty united vision in terms of how they're implementing their policy. And I think it has to be, I mean, if there's one thing, perhaps Alberta is a conservative flavored place. I would go ahead and agree with that. But, people here don't like dishonesty. No one likes dishonesty, but people also don't like hypocrisy. And that's really leaked out a lot in the last few days when we have the MLAs in some cases with inside of the ministry with cabinet positions in Alberta who are going on vacation amidst the lockdown to Hawaii. I mean, Tracy Allard, who went to Hawaii as the minister in charge of vaccinating Alberta, in charge of vaccines. She goes on vacation to Hawaii while we're in lockdown. This pisses everybody off. So this pisses people off on the left who are like, who are going to be upset about mistakes the UCP make regardless. It pisses off the UCP base because they've been asked to and I mean just kind of like their moderate base, which I think is their biggest voting contingent in Calgary and some in Edmonton as well and across the province. But pisses them off because they've been asked to make sacrifices that they agree with, but then that kind of, if I'm making a sacrifice and you're the leaders are blatantly rubbing that in our face, that doesn't go over well. And then even Ezra Levant of the Rebel hopped on this and started tearing.
That was a plot twist I did not see coming.
Totally. And so it pisses off every single corner of the province. And I mean, there was only one solution, was to fire her, just fire her ass. It's not that hard really, except, well, it could be that hard if a bunch of your ministers did it, which it seems like there's a lot of MLAs. And just to some extent, it went across all parties, but it seemed like the UCP provincial caucus was just terrible for just going on vacation willy-nilly over the holidays. And so like they have no direction. They're trying to make this scatter shot without kind of like having any kind of united vision in their party, and they just assume that they're going to skate on brand, and they're going to skate just on the confusion and chaos that they are creating. And listen, Kenny, he's just not fit for a leadership role. Like you said, Brad, he's supposed to be this wily politician, and he might be in a secondary role. I have my doubts based on what I've seen the last few years, but he's just not a good leader. And I think that's what it all comes down to. He's a terrible leader, and he has no vision for the province, and he's just kind of going about things day by day. The pandemic's just really a microcosm of his whole of his government. It's just it's
starting a bunch of fires and not being able to
shambolic. That's the word of 2021. It's
if I could add on your just to say, people really dislike the hypocrisy. I also think people really dislike that when all of this news came out, that all these MLAs and his cabinet minister had flown to Hawaii, and then he gives this press conference that is just the most weaselly excuse-making performance. The airlines would go out of business if our MLAs didn't fly to Hawaii.
Those 8 people didn't take that flight. Yeah,
the rules are not that clear. How are you supposed to read non-essential travel should be strictly avoided? Like how, but it's a vacation, which is pretty essential because it's cold and snowy now.
Some of them saying, well, I already paid for it.
Yeah. And, I only make $185,000 a year or something like that. So, and I mean, our vaccine minister, at that point, the program was at about a quarter of the pace they were supposed to be at. So, I mean, she kind of blew it already. What was she going to do?
Yeah.
Stick some needles in arms herself? Like, just, it took no accountability. I think the easiest thing to do there as a leader is just say, okay, yeah, she's not out of the party, but sure, you're fired as a cabinet minister because you need to be held to a higher standard than, average Joe on the street who did Christmas over Zoom instead of going Hawaii. So I think just the failure of leadership there in that specific press conference and his response to say there will essentially be no punishments whatsoever. And they all kind of released statements saying, I really didn't think this through, which, it's just, I didn't think I would get caught, and now I did. And
but some of them did think it through by making social media posts that allude to the fact that they're at home while they are not at home. There's 2 of them, Allard and another one, both made social media posts over the holidays with pictures of Alberta or them in Alberta talking about Alberta while they weren't there. And it's like, come on, there's no other way you're doing that. There's no other reason you're doing that.
That one dude was on a ski hill saying how good it was.
Yeah,
I think I like what Kenny said is he's like something to the effect of statistically it's safer to fly to Hawaii right now than to be in a grocery store in Calgary. And it's
not for the Hawaiians.
Yeah, but it's like you're in charge of making the grocery store safe. Like, what the fuck are we talking about here?
There's a number of things we can break into on that. Because it depends what risk you're talking about. If you're talking about personal risk of getting infected, yeah, maybe a grocery store is more. But if you're talking about bringing back another strain of the coronavirus to Canada, different risks.
That one dude flew back from the UK through the States to get around the travel ban that the federal government just put in.
Yeah, it's all not good. And you're absolutely right, Steve. It's the hypocrisy and stuff. And I think and that's the other thing I think when I'm saying, like, can they plow through with this? Can they continue with this? Because that's been the strategy so far is, fuck what anyone says. We're just going to keep plowing ahead. Whether it was people with the checkered past of what they wrote about the residential schools being part of the curriculum, whether it was election fraud, whether it was the war room debacle, whether, they just plow ahead on this, like you said, Steve, skating on their brand. But anyway, we've spent, I think, enough on this. Let's
shambolic.
Yeah,
I think my prediction is Kenny will just keep plowing. Plowing Alberta all 2021.
I think he's certainly got to be thanking his lucky stars that the election's 2 years away, because
Yes.
if
Yeah.
the election was tomorrow, I think he'd be in real trouble.
Yeah.
Who knows? Because the big oil rebound is just around the corner, folks. I'm pretty sure that's what I'm hearing based
Well, they've
on.
opened up all the areas for coal, so that'll create what, like 1,000 jobs for some people in Coaldale? I don't know. No
All
offense
us
to
in the
Coaldale, but
all of
Coaldale.
us in the coal community are very excited about that.
That's right.
mhm.
One, to say, a rising coal tide raises all coal ships.
Very nice. And Coleman will be one of those ships.
God willing.
Yeah, you've already bought stock, I know. All right, so then let's kind of, I guess, look at the other side quick here. We'll do a quick prediction for the future, and I want to go to the federal government of Canada and Trudeau, because it's very much like we said, the opposite of this. They've been spend, spend, spend. That's been their brand of, we can do this. We have the, we can borrow. Um, they make the argument that the time to borrow is now, and that people need this money. People need to be taken care of. And in their throne speech, they didn't go as far as some people wanted, but they did propose things like a national child care program, that kind of thing. Um, so that's the total other side of the spectrum, and I think you can equally criticize that, whether the money was spent appropriately, how it was rolled out, all of that thing, and moving forward, what should be the consideration. But looming over all of this, I feel, is the chance at an election, a spring election. I don't think the Liberals personally will call an election in the heat of the pandemic, and we're not out of it yet. Things are getting worse and will get worse before they get better. So I don't think they're going to do anything in the winter. But if I'm correct, they will have to propose a budget. So that could be the next moment in which the government falls, and the budget will probably be a spend heavy budget. So we'll see. So I don't know. I guess, what do you guys want to say moving forward? If you want to make a yes or no, are we going to have an election, or just speculate on what do you think the Liberals' approach for the next year is going to be? Start with you, Scott.
I'm definitely going to vote yes on an election. My bet would be late spring. I think once the vaccine program is really rolling and they can then say, okay, folks, looks like, the worst of this pandemic is soon going to be behind us. And now let's make it a referendum on all the checks that we wrote to you. So if you like the checks, vote more of us. And I think they'll win. Honestly, I think they'll win a majority. Simply, as I'd mentioned previously, I think it helps living next to the shambolicness of all shambolic in the United States. So then just to be able to say, look how much better we did than them, I think will allow them, essentially propel them to victory. My guess is they'll try and orchestrate it so that someone else brings them down, as
Yeah.
opposed to saying we're just calling the election on strict opportunism, saying we were, trying to do this great budget for you, and the other parties just wouldn't have it. So I guess we have to go to the polls, because I think no one is really, it just doesn't look great to kind of opportunistically call an election just when you think the time is right for you. But it wouldn't be the first time in Canadian history that's happened. So
Well,
uh,
even last year, two provincial governments did that and were rewarded.
yeah, and I
New
think
Brunswick and
it's
BC, I believe.
yeah, called early elections to say, hey, we're providing a competent pandemic response, do you want more of this? And they both won bigger majorities. So
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely think there will be a spring election.
Correct me if I'm wrong, and I actually don't know now. Can they call it by themselves, or do they need the NDP because
Well,
in a
they can
minority?
call one whenever they want.
No, I think that there is a fixed, I can't remember, a fixed
There is
election
a
date
fixed
law.
election date, so the government would have to fall, or Justin Trudeau can go to the Governor General and say, I don't
Exactly.
believe we can command the confidence of the House. And then the
He can
Governor
ask
General
the
will
Governor General to dissolve it.
yeah. And the Governor General would then, as per the official rules, would have to go to the other party, the other leaders, and say, do you think you can form a coalition that, can command the confidence of the House, which obviously the Liberals being the middle party, the Conservatives have no one to go to, the NDP has no one to go to. So they essentially on their own could orchestrate an election, which is why our fixed election law is a bit of a joke.
Yeah, but I mean, so they would have to. That would be pretty weaselly of them to do that, though, right? Because it wouldn't be on the non-confidence of the UC or not the UCP, the CCP, or the NDP. It would be based on the Liberals' non-confidence in themselves, which is actually just a veil for their
No,
uber confidence
there
in
was
themselves.
I was watching CBC The National and the Power and Politics panel.
Mm-hmm.
And they proposed, one of them proposed a scenario, like a, just this is what you could say, to the public, is that uh, we've spent so much already on this. We feel we need a mandate from the people in order to spend another billion, so we're asking you to dissolve parliament and put it to the people, that's how you could spin it. That's how you could spin it. So that's just one example of how you could spin it.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. I mean, if that's the case, it would behoove them to have an election in the spring for sure. So if they can make it happen on their own, then hell yeah, because they would win because there's nothing that is sticking in the media cycle in terms of negativity towards Trudeau. Just nothing worked. The We scandal lost steam for various reasons. It's all pandemic. So, and if it's in the spring, that's going to be our numbers will be low. They'll be declining.
Yeah.
Our vaccinations will be rising, and people will overall give Trudeau a passing grade for his work. So, um, yeah, I think if they can make it happen, they will, and if they can make it happen, they'll get lots of seats.
Yeah. I wonder, Coleman, let me just put surprise to you question. Do you think if there is election, we've laid out that, 3/4 of us, I guess, think that there will be. What do you think the CPC, like Aaron O'Toole, what is his play? What is his strategy? How does he like counter the wave of Trudeau love in terms of the pandemic response? Like, because like Steve just alluded to, nothing seems to stick. What do you do?
Personally, I don't think he does. Like, I just don't. I don't think like Aaron O'Toole's a bad guy. As far as conservative leaders go, I think he's reasonable. But like Trudeau is a very, very good campaigner, and Aaron O'Toole is just a white dude. He looks like a guy that works at Home Hardware. Like, how do you like? What do you do? Like, there's no
Well,
answer.
you could attack the carbon tax, the hike in the carbon tax. I don't know. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're
but
right.
that doesn't give them the votes that they don't give them the support that they need to pick up from the Liberals specifically. I don't think you're going to take votes from the Liberals on campaigning on a carbon tax. I think, and of course, just going back, shambolic means chaotic, disorganized, or mismanaged. I knew that. I just wanted so the rest of the listeners know that that's what it means.
Thank you.
So we've been using that word a lot. But yeah,
Probably gonna
Aaron
be the
O'Toole.
title of this episode.
It's good. I thought "Jizz on a Couch" would be a good title, but this is fine too.
He just keeps saying it. He just keeps saying it.
I'm gonna keep one of these is gonna sneak through the censors. You can't get them all.
If you jizz on a plastic cover on a couch, that's the opposite of shambolic. All right.
It's very targeted, managed.
Yeah, that's a man.
Required foresight.
And like Brad's gonna try and take all these jizz on a couch references out, but what we know about jizz is sometimes it sneaks through, even if you do everything you can to prevent it.
Yeah.
But
my
back to Aaron.
That.
Oh yeah.
The existence of my 4-year-old can speak to that.
Let's hope she never hears this.
Back to Aaron O'Toole. The guy, like I say, I don't know really how you attack Trudeau right now. He's been kind of I've been interested. He's kind of made a legitimate play for working class votes, like an actual like some vaguely pro-union statements coming out of the O'Toole camp, which is pretty interesting coming from the Harper era of conservatives. But Like I could see a situation. I kind of agree that there most likely will be an election in the spring, but I also think there's a chance that the Liberals don't bother. If they put their budget up, the Conservatives can make a big play about how terrible this is, and then just not have a certain there's a specific term for it when you just don't have MPs show up for the vote, abstaining, I guess. Not even abstaining, just like not present,
Yeah.
and then you can let it sneak through that way. I could see that happening if then maybe the Liberals don't try and push their luck. They just keep a minority government. I don't know. I haven't seen the polling. They might be in majority territory, but I also kind of think that Justin Trudeau is going to eventually campaign on a universal basic income, and that's his big campaign deal. And if that's the case, I don't see the Conservatives beating him in any fashion. I just don't see it happening.
Really,
I don't
actually.
think, and I don't think they have not to bash Aaron O'Toole. I don't think they have a leader really that like a prospect that could really go against Trudeau right now.
Yeah, he does have a lot of goodwill, and I think it's like the pandemic, in a lot of ways helped him because if we were talking, for a whole nother year about spending and not with this guise of, hey, we all need this money and this spending was a good thing, it could be, it could be a very different situation. Yeah, I'm not sure what the Conservatives do, and I'd be curious as to whether the Liberals, do just ride out a minority, because at this point, it also does feel like who wants to bring them down? It doesn't really behoove anybody to bring them
No,
down. The NDP,
No.
like what is
No, they don't want to. But here's the thing: if I could vote for the guy who helped me out at Home Depot last night for prime minister, I would. So to say
you can. Aaron O'Toole is running in this election.
that's what I'm saying. So I perhaps would vote for him, especially if you knew lots about electrical panels.
Mhm.
Yeah, because you need to get the right switch. You can't just get any fucking switch. It's the
as you
electricity of
found
your
out.
home. My God. Yeah. And so here's the other thing. If there is an election, we all know that between now and then, Justin Trudeau is going to do something fucking stupid. Probably one or two things. They probably have already happened, and we just don't know about them
Agreed.
yet.
100% agreed.
Yeah.
And so there might be
He
some
will have
fuel
been
there.
vacationing with the Aga Khan in a COVID hotspot this whole time.
For sure.
In
For sure.
blackface.
And so there's that. But then
Or a Castro. I don't know. One of the two.
could be he had Castro face on.
Yeah.
It turned out that he recorded a parody rap album entirely in blackface and using some very offensive accents as well. And
He
he'll
went
skate
full
for
method
hours.
actor. He went full method actor.
Full method actor.
So the thing that the Conservatives are going to use, we don't know about yet, but it's going to be there. And the other thing is like ethically, I disagree with calling an election in the spring just to suck up your majority.
Yeah.
I mean, elections are expensive, first of all. So if you're doing that just to ask people to spend more money, to spend more money, I mean, you're going to spend that money in, put it in your budget. And then if the NDP and the Conservatives call you on it and say, yeah, no, we don't have confidence in this budget, then they can trigger it. But I don't want them going ahead and self-triggering.
Yeah. And I don't think they will, to be honest. I don't think they'll self-trigger because they have, like you said, like no one's going to take them down. So they can basically govern like they have a majority. And this is what Harper did too with his minority. He kind of,
Well, and you're
For
right.
sure.
It's tough to force someone to take you down because either your budget has too much money in it, in which case the NDP is probably going to support you, or not enough money in it, in which case the Conservative Party is going to support you. And so, how do you, it's hard to come up with a budget that's too centrist for everyone, so that everyone takes you down. It seems unlikely, but I think you're right as far as what does O'Toole campaign on. you can't campaign on giving more money than the Liberals did or spending more money. That's going to obviously turn off your conservative base. But austerity also right now is not going to be popular in the slightest, especially when interest rates are so incredibly low. And it seems like, we just borrowed like $300 billion or $700 billion. Like, what's another 100 billion? Once the numbers get big, then people start thinking in percentages rather than absolutes. And it's like, wow, it's only 10% more. It's only 20% more. I think there will be no appetite to, go hard austerity, nor should there be, as far as at least the economics nerds that I follow would suggest that, there are times where the government needs to borrow and spend, and now's one of those times. I don't know. I'd be curious if you guys have any thoughts as to what, other than, because it seems a lot of like Justin Trudeau is a sort of pompous, smarmy politician, which he is, but it doesn't seem to affect, people still vote for him. And we all know that by now. We've heard the attacks, we've seen the blackface photos, none of that worked. So, where do they go from here? And I honestly don't know. I don't envy being a conservative strategist going into this next election.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think
I think
if you're I don't want to interrupt you, Brad, but if you're a conservative strategist, you're just thinking it's like, well, these scandals just slide off Justin Trudeau like jizz off a plastic couch.
oh god, I should have not let you interrupt me. Um,
Back to you, Brad.
Thank you, Coleman. I was going to say, I think the Conservatives, whether it's federally or let's go closer to home in Alberta, they are stuck in this position that they have a fractured sort of base. Because I think the way forward is to just do what the Liberals do, but offer it in your brand, in your package. Like you said, there's no appetite for austerity or belt tightening really right now, but you could, and the trying to oppose the carbon tax just isn't going to work. They need a climate change plan. They need a plan that speaks to the working people. Like you said, O'Toole is trying to appeal to unions and stuff like that. But that's it. That is where the Canadian electorate is at, the majority of them anyway, or at least in the places that they need to win. So that's where they need to go. But O'Toole balances this with the guys like Derek Sloan and whatnot in his cabinet, where he's got to balance this, and to a growing point, what's her name, Leslyn Lewis. They're balancing this like really far social right, rhetoric driven freedom, whatever stereotype of the right of conservatives, with the sort of center right that the conservative parties have always been. And that's going to be their challenge until they can reconcile that. I don't know what their move forward is. Let's move it along though. Do we want to do a quick lightning round of winners and losers of the year?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I do. So I will go first, because otherwise Barg's negative attitude is going to get infectious here.
Now I know who my loser is.
There you go. Canadian winners and losers, honestly, just to follow on our previous topic, I was going to say Justin Trudeau is the big winner from the pandemic, and the Conservative Party of Canada are the losers, because I think if there's an election, which I think there will be, this is almost guaranteed a Liberal majority. In the United States, I'm going to say the biggest winner of the year is right-wing grifters. The market is flooded right now. If you just go on Twitter, make up some shit about how you saw, some guy in a van drop off a bunch of bags of something, and next thing you know, you're on Newsmax, and you could be a celebrity, and then you start putting together a newsletter list where you got to get money for the fight that you're engaged in. That's just tweets. So it's a real good market for the grifters right now. I think the biggest loser in the States this year would be institutional Republicans, in that you see this sort of fracturing going on of like the Mitt Romneys of the world, who I think are trying to cling to this vision of the Republican Party as to what they understood it, party of Reagan, party of like, protecting democracy. And that's just over. I think the latest shenanigans about the election have shown that the Republican Party has basically abandoned any commitment to the principle of democracy. And with any luck, that won't stand. And my hope is that ultimately leads to the collapse of the authoritarian wing of the Republican Party. But yeah, if you were a Republican who thought the party actually stood for anything other than maintaining power at all costs, you were the biggest loser in the United States of 2020. And Herman Cain.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's a good one. I agree on that. Herman
Nice
Cain.
way to stick it to him. Coleman, do you have a pick?
My biggest loser of 2020, maybe not biggest, but a group of losers is the position of issue manager within the Alberta government. These, well, I guess they're not really losers because they're paid very well, but there's these neckbeard Twitter troll fucks that the UCP pays very well to just go on Twitter and make an ass of themselves. This one guy was Brian Bateson, not Batman. Bateson gets paid over $100,000 a year to have, basically his job is to go on Twitter and argue with people. He has 1,000 followers or 1,300 followers or something like that. And he just like picks these fights and he's a loser. And I think I don't know how long this issue manager thing has been a role within the Alberta government. I
think it's new.
I think the NDP had them, but we never heard of them. I think they were just in charge of putting out statements and stuff like that, I think. But that needs to go. Like, it's terrible. It's awful. And the winner,
Bateson, his profile picture is him holding a mug with his own face on it. If you want to get a perception of what a douchebag this guy is.
Yeah. I said on Twitter, to toot my own horn, I said that Brian Bateson is the microwaved leftovers of issue managers, and it got some play, so I was pretty happy with that. The biggest winner by far is Mr. Rudy Giuliani for making himself relevant again in 2020. The man that was a hero as mayor of New York, was one of the worst presidential candidates, not candidate, but the presumptive Republican nominees ever to run. And everyone's like, we'll never hear from Rudy again. And he came back with ferocious intensity and will live in our hearts forever. So the winner by far is Rudy.
The year started with the impeachment, is all about Rudy. Now we're at the election stealing, all about Rudy. He's managed to stay relevant all year.
He's back. He's never going away. And I'm not going to make a comment about couches.
All right, thank you for that. Steve, do you have a winner, a loser?
I picked myself on both counts.
Good job.
No explanation necessary. No, I think, let's see, winner. I think Rachel Notley is a big winner. To me, coming out of this, I don't know if she rebrands to step away from the NDP. I don't even really think she has to. I see the path for her to victory is forming in front of her. And I believe it happens through various different means including a total splintering of the right wing, which is what led to her election in the first place. It will be the Independent Wild Rose Party will take votes. Kenny will be in shambles. He'll be shambolic. And it'll, I think she's going to take it again. And like, here's the thing, here's a little thought exercise for you. Imagine, if you will, Kenny loses the election. Okay. But he's still the leader of the opposition party. Do you think that guy sticks around?
No, he resigns for election
a day, 2 days.
No. Yeah, I think he'll stick it through the concession speech, but not much beyond that.
So here's the thing with Notley. She's proven the fact that she cares about Albertans by sticking around. There's definitely opportunity for her outside of the public service to have left after being thwarted in the previous election. But she stuck around, and I think largely she did a good job. And I think she's going to be again the premier of Alberta in a couple years. And maybe she'll stick this time for a couple times. Who knows? But in terms of the losers, listen, there's so many losers in 2020. It's a really unbelievable, just vast sea of loserdom. All you have to do is kind of dip your toe in it on the internet, and you yourself become a loser, if only for a moment. But I'm going to go with Lynn Wood, who's had some bizarre takes on Vice President Mike Pence.
Now, just to clarify, is Linwood, is he part of the Trump legal team or?
No, I think he's an independent, crazy firebrand, but who
Okay.
gets a lot of love from Trump because he says what he wants to hear.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
That's right. Yes, he is. He's from Atlanta, Georgia, and he has, I believe, in the last couple of days, both said that Mike Pence should be executed. By firing squad. And did he tweet that he was perhaps already dead and they've replaced him? Or is that's someone else in the conspiratorial world anyway? I don't know if it was him or not, but he probably would kind of latch onto that idea as well, knowing how this dumb fucker thinks. So this is a crazy person. I mean, it really has exposed the losers 2020. So we should be thankful for that in a certain sense. Like I know Sidney Powell is also another one of these lawyers who actually did work for Trump, and she was exposed as a crazy kook loser. She's a big loser.
Also, very bad speller.
Well, that's the thing with these lawyers is a lot of them, Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood included, these are terrible lawyers. Like they're just not very good at the job of lawyering. And you can toss Rudy Giuliani into that mix too. It's been a bumper crop year for crazy loser lawyers in the United States.
I have one more winner, a serious one this time. Stacey Abrams is a winner this year. She lost the was it 2018, the governor's race in Georgia. A lot of people wrote off her political career after that, apparently. And then she was the driving force behind the voter registration in Georgia that arguably allowed Biden to win the state and might get 2 Senate seats for the Democratic Party there. Allegedly. But she has a bright future ahead of her. She was one of the few winners of 2020, I would say.
That's a good point. Yeah, good shout out there, Coleman. Because she,
I was due
by all accounts. Yeah, you finally contributed. Did a lot of the groundwork, a lot of the organizing, a lot of the stuff that like really wins campaigns. A lot of the hard work. So Steve, to kind of roll with what you were saying, it's funny, your loser pick is kind of the same people that are the winner pick for Stoli. One man's losers are another man's winners. It depends on, I guess, if we look at their bank account or their personal credibility.
Lynn Wood's certainly sending out a lot of fundraising messages.
That's right.
I think it's just him posting crazy tweets. Like, how much money do you need to do that? But it turns out, I think he's getting a crazy national profile for a legitimate crazy person.
He made it on our podcast.
Yeah, he made it to this podcast where only the highlights of the world make it. So
that's right. With this kind of discourse, what can you expect?
I'd call him a big winner. I'd say he's if your goal was to just have people to know your name and respond to your fundraising messages, then he did well.
Well, part of the overarching problem, and I'll wrap this back to what Brad said at the beginning of the program, is the fact that these guys are, in a sense, winners. Makes the American education system a big loser. Because if they,
the biggest loser.
That might be the biggest loser of all of 2020, and it's really sad to say because it really shouldn't be that way. But the fact that these utter morons can get anything more than basically sued into oblivion when they start spouting off their insane uh, bullshit, and they have people listening to them. They have an audience, a paying audience, means that those people are truly stupid. So,
All right. Well, let me jump on that. I'll give you my real quick winners and losers, and then we'll move on to one last segment. Real quick, the losers, I think, big loser of the year, kind of with the same characters that you were just talking about there, Steve, is the truth. The truth took a hit. Lot of lying going on out there. A lot of conspiracy theories getting run. A lot of QAnon. I saw a article the other day where an Ipsos poll and someone else, I think NPR, did a poll, and only I think it was an astonishing 37% of Americans couldn't totally disagree with the statement that satanic pedophiles run the media and the government. It's disturbing. Real quick then, biggest winner, total 4 seasons, total landscaping. They got to be the biggest winner of the year, right?
Yes, I
They're
agree.
cashing in on some merch,
good call.
right?
Good call.
They
They
got
might be, as far as boosting their brand recognition, they might be the only people above Lynn Wood in 2020 as who
Yeah.
really came from obscurity to, if I'm in Philadelphia and I need landscaping, that's obviously who I'm going to call.
Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if you want quality wood, you go to Four Seasons. That's where you go. You definitely don't go to Lynn. And speaking of Four Seasons, the infamous press conference. Steve's shaking his head at me. Didn't like that one. We're gonna wrap it up with Coleman. You wanted to do your main man, Rudy Giuliani.
Yes.
Was it his best moments of the year?
Yes, the inaugural Honest Coleman's award for Rudy Giuliani moment of the year. I've narrowed it down to 4.
Inaugural and final. I'm not sure Rudy sees the end of 2021, to be honest. But
Rudy
we'll see.
Rudy will never die. The sun will never set on the Giuliani empire. I'm here to tell you. But I've narrowed it down to 4, which is difficult because there was a lot. The man
There was a lot.
busy. So I will give you the 4 options, and then there's 3 of you. We'll figure out some sort of voting system. We'll figure this. We're fine-tuning this process. Number 1, these are in not chronological order. Number 1 is having his hair melt during a press conference on voter fraud and having the live stream comment, or the men running the live stream comment that he was sweating through his hair dye on YouTube. Number 2 is the Four Seasons landscaping press conference, which is everyone knows about that. We just talked about it. A good cover for accidentally booking the wrong venue for a very important press conference after an election. Number 3 is farting multiple times during a hearing on voter fraud in Michigan. And he left no doubt. Fart once on mic, and it's like, well, that could have been a lot of things. Fart multiple times, he made it sure, confirmed it. And last but not least, adjusting his penis while trying to sleep with a Russian reporter during the filming of Borat 2.
This is kind of tough because these are even just. I'm trying to think back of Rudy Giuliani moments from earlier in the year. I mean, these are
new,
fairly recent, yeah. And I can't even think of any because it's just been a deluge. I got to go with farting. You know, fart.
You can never go wrong with farting.
That's right. Fart once, shame on me. Fart twice, I'll never fart again. I think that's how President Bush said it.
Yeah. So we got one
I'm
fart.
I'm gonna have to go with Borat, but like watching that movie, I was so viscerally uncomfortable for much of it, but also just trying not to like wake my whole family up laughing my ass off. So, and that scene is so incredibly cringe inducing, but just so perfect. All of the stars that had to line up for that moment to come together was just an incredible achievement in filmmaking. And also, yeah, just made my skin crawl. So well done, Borat.
Okay, before we get to Barg, I'd just
Yeah.
like to point out that before we started recording, I mentioned that I was going to do this, and Scott was 100% in on farting. So that tells me that Rudy's been up to so much that he forgot that Borat happened.
I did forget about the Borat.
He forgot
thing.
all, and that should have been the obvious one. But anyway, to you, Barg. Sorry to interrupt you.
Listen, I love all these moments. I want to make a mixed tape, just to put it on a cassette so I can keep it forever. Of all the Rudy moments. Honorable mention also for him to bring out the drunk witness.
And here's
What
the thing,
was her name again?
I forgot about the drunk witness when I was putting this list together. That's how busy he was.
Melissa Carone.
There it is.
Allegedly, purportedly drunk witness at the election fraud hearing. And listen, this is one of those ones where it was so nuts that she was so nuts that Rudy himself was trying to stop her. So that was maybe even a rare moment
He was
of
the sane one.
sanity for Rudy. But I just the fact that he had someone juxtaposed next to him that made him appear to be sane was truly a delight. So, but of all the moments, it's got to be Four Seasons speech. All the networks. He's told that the election's been called during his speech, and he proceeds. Which network called it? All of them. Oh, all of them. All the networks. It was.
Hey, networks don't decide elections. Courts decide elections. Like,
Yeah,
people old time people would have said voters decide elections, but you know
yeah.
Well, I like in
it
that
was,
in that in
it
that press
was
conference
amazing.
when he looks at the camera, he's like, "Do you think we're idiots? Do you think we're dumb?" It's like, "Yes, Rudy.
Yeah,
Yes."
Let's also point out that he brought out to speak at that conference a convicted sex offender. So let's not forget that.
Okay, so to tally the votes,
Well, I mean, there's not that big a difference between convicted sex offenders and unconvicted sex offenders.
they all look
So
the same on camera.
Except
maybe Rudy
that,
just wanted like a supporter.
The media doesn't decide who's a sex offender. The courts decide who's a sex offender.
So
Maybe we should vote. Is Rudy a sex offender? I think it would be yes.
So to recap,
Probably yes.
We have one vote for farting during a voter fraud hearing. We have one vote for Four Seasons landscaping press conference. And we have one vote for adjusting his penis while trying to sleep with a Russian reporter during the filming of Borat 2. And I'm proud to announce I have the tie-breaking vote that we have a 4-way tie because I'm voting for melting during a press conference.
Leaking oil from his brain.
Yeah.
And I like this. That encapsulated Rudy perfectly because that's how hot he was running all year. That he was melting through his hair on TV. God bless you, Rudy. May you live 1,000 years.
There you have it. I don't think you really couldn't pick one moment to win. All right, folks, that's it. Let's wrap this up. Thank you, gentlemen, for this rather spicy episode. But I enjoyed it. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. And we'll see you all next time.
See ya.
See you
Thanks,
later.
Brad.
Thank you, Brad.
Can I say one more thing?
Follow Lionel
Can I say
Steele.
one more thing? Let's get a plug in here quick. Follow Lionel Steele, like you said, and everyone be safe. Keep the covers on your couch and the jizz off those
Oh,
covers. Good night, everyone.
All right. See y'all, guys.
just out. Doesn't want anything to do with us.